negativity around you and turn it into oxygen for easy breathing. A host of wild creatures lives inside you, and you call them stories, a variety of beautiful birds nests inside your mind, and you call them memories. You have become an incredible self-sustaining thing of epic proportions, and you should be so proud of yourself, of how far you have come from the seeds of who you used to be.
Good morning, and welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I'm Brian McDonald, and I'm a member of this congregation. Whether it's your first time with us or you've been here many times, we want to know that you're welcome, and we are glad that we have you today with us. Our church is also offering Sunday services both in person and virtually. So whether you are here in the chapel or joining us from home, you are welcome. As we gather, we recommit ourselves to the mission of this church to support one another in our spiritual journeys, to work for justice, to care for the earth, and to build the common good. It is great to be together. Mount Vernon Unitarian Church is a community dedicated to welcoming the stranger and working for justice wherever the heavy weight of oppression has dug into the fabric of life. To that effort, we name and honor the traditional indigenous inhabitants of this land, the Piscataway, the Powhatan, and the Dogue. We recall that enslaved people worked this land where we gather this morning.
We want to make a quick announcement this morning. MVUC is encouraging any member who is willing and able to send a card to Plano, Texas in support of Community Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm sure you've all heard about the horrific attack that happened last Sunday, and this is the time for our community to come together in solidarity. So now we turn our hearts and our minds to worship. Thank you.
Why do they shut me out of heaven? Did I sing too loud? But I can sing a little minor, timid as a bird. Wouldn't the angels try me just once more? Just see if I'd trouble them. But don't shut the door, don't shut the door. Oh, if I were the gentleman in the white robes, and they were the little hand that knocked. Could I forbid, could I forbid, could I forbid? Why do they shut me out of heaven? Did I sing too loud? Going to heaven, going to heaven, going to heaven. I don't know when. Pray do not ask me how. Indeed, I'm too astonished to think of answering you. Going to heaven, going to heaven. How dim it seems, and yet it will be done, as sure as flocks go home at night and to the shepherd's arm. Perhaps you're going to, who knows? If you should get there first, save just a little place for me, close to the two I lost. The smallest robe will fit me, and just a bit of crown, for you know we do not mind the we are going home. Going to heaven, going to heaven. I'm glad I don't believe it, for it would stop my breath. And I like to look a little more at such a curious earth. I am glad they did believe it, whom I have never found since the mighty autumn afternoon I left them in the ground.
Let's have another big round of applause for our guest soprano, Hillary Park. So our chalice lighting today comes from me. I wrote this after a very spiritually taxing night, and I hope you like it. This service is dedicated to deviants, degenerates, and sinners, those of us who the world is trying to eradicate, This is for immigrants, the queer people, the trans people, the disabled people, the pagans, the heretics, and the racialized, who by our very nature are deemed off-model, a threat to polite society. Divine Feminine, give us the strength to destroy the model and to join in the Bacchanalia. Show us the divinity of sin. So if you will please rise in body and spirit and join in singing hymn number 327, Joy Thou Goddess.
Joy, thou goddess, fair immortal, offspring of Elysium, and with rapture to the portal of thy holy fane we come. Fashions those indeed may sever, but thy magic joins again. Humankind is one forever, 'neath thy mild and gentle reign. Joy in nature's wide dominion, mightiest cause of all is found, and 'tis joy that moves the pinion when the wheel of time goes round. From the bud she lures the flower, suns from out their orbs of light. Distant spheres obey her power, far beyond all mortal sight.
You may be seated. At this time, we will unite our voices as we recite together the covenant of this community. It is found in the back of your hymnal and in our hearts. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all. Just want to mention now that Zoe McShane is going to be delivering our message in a little while. And Zoe is a ministerial student at Wesley Seminary. She is preparing to be a minister in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. And Mount Vernon Unitarian Church is sponsoring her in this path that she has undertaken. Zoe is from Daytona Beach, Florida, originally, and studied at the University of Florida. And she also serves on our worship committee here at this church. So we're happy to have her. And I believe this is the first time she has brought the sermon on Sunday morning, and we're so excited about that.
And it is working. Okay. We're going to have our time of all ages. So anyone who is young of heart or young in age, please come up to the front. Don't be shy. If you don't, I can do this freestyle. Hello. Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to come down? Any adults also, it's fine. We don't want anyone to be lonely up here. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about getting in trouble. So has anyone ever gotten in trouble before? Raise your hand if you've ever gotten in trouble. Yes, I see you all adults. So when you're about to do something and you're trying to figure out if it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, how do you know? Do you know how to know? Okay, very wise. Does anyone have any answers? How would you know? Yes. It's okay. Okay, we're gonna do some rapid fire. I'm gonna say a thing that you might wanna do, and you tell me if it's good or bad, okay? If it's good, thumbs up. If it's bad, thumbs down. Are you ready? Hitting your friend. Bad. That one's easy. Okay, being creative. That one's good. What about embezzling money to the Bahamas? That's a little more complicated. Okay, what about wearing your favorite outfit? That one's good. What if people really don't like your outfit, though? Is it still good? Yeah, it's still good because you know in your heart that it's right? Okay, does anyone like Spider-Man? Oh, can you hand me the, sorry. We have these wonderful pictures printed out. Okay, does anyone like Spider-Man? Yes, I love Spider-Man. I've been collecting Spider-Man comics since I was like 13. And the really cool thing about Spider-Man is that he's a really good person who's always helping people. But if you follow Spider-Man's stories, the people in his world do not think he's a good person. The head of the newspapers, J. Jonah Jameson, always calls him a menace. The police are always trying to arrest him. And if you watch the new Spider-Verse movie, you see that even all the other Spider people in all the alternate universes, the police are also trying to arrest them. But they know in their heart that they're doing a good thing by helping people, so they keep doing it. So before you leave to go to class, I want to introduce you to a figure you probably don't know, because she's not as famous as Spider-Man. And her name is Sor Juana Inez. She lived a long, long time ago, in the 1600s in Mexico. And Sor Juana lived in a time where women were not allowed to go to college. And women had to get married, even if they didn't want to, even if they didn't like the man. And Sor Juana really didn't want to get married, and she really loved studying. She even tried to pretend to be a boy so she could go to college, but she got caught, so that didn't work. So she decided to get out of being married, and so she could read all day. She became a nun. Do you know what a nun is? No, we don't have them here. A nun is someone who dedicates their life to a religion. So she dedicated her life to the Catholic Church, and even though she was working for the Catholic Church and she loved being a nun, she did not always agree with all of the Catholic Church's rules. And she wrote a lot of books criticizing the Catholic Church and saying that the leadership had some problems and that women should be allowed to be priests and to be in leadership and to make decisions. And how do you think the people felt about that? Bad. They were very upset. One priest even said about Sor Juana, women should be inside all day praying and not writing. And she did another thing that made people really angry. She fell in love with a woman named Countess Maria. And even though everyone around her was telling her that she was bad, that she was a sinner, Sor Juana knew in her heart that what she was doing was right, that her writing was right, and that her love was right. And today, she's considered the most influential female writer in all of Mexican history. So that's what I want for y'all, to be able to know what's right for your heart. So even if the world is saying confusing things, you're still able to do good. I hope you have a great day.
We now come to the morning offering. At this time at Mount Vernon Unitarian Church, we ask each of you to show your and our spiritual and share your material and spiritual generosity. I give because sharing monetarily helps me to feel invested in this spiritual community. Each week we share the plate with a charitable organization that you, our members, have chosen. This week's offering is shared with Neighborhood Health. Neighborhood Health's mission is to improve health and advance health equity in Alexandria, Arlington, and Fairfax by providing high-quality primary care regardless of ability to pay. If you would like to write a check for the offering, please make it payable to MVUC, and in the memo line you can indicate what it is for. If you would like to give half to our church's budget and half to our neighborhood partner, which today is Neighborhood Health, please write 50-50 in the memo line. If you would like, you can go directly to our church website to give, and in your program there's a little QR code that if you aim your smartphone there, it will facilitate you doing that. During the offering, you're welcome to come forward in silence to light a candle of joy or sorrow. And now will the ushers please come forward for the morning offering.
Die stille Lotesblume steigt aus dem blauen See. Die Blätter flimmen und blitzen, der Kelch ist weiß wie Schnee. Da gießt der Mond vom Himmel all seinen Sonnenschein, gießt alle seine Strahlen in jeden Schuss hinein. Im Wasser die Blume kreiset ein weißer Schwan. Es singt so süß, so leise und schaut die Blume an. Es singt so süß, so leise und will im Singen vergehen. O Blume, weiße Blume, kannst du das Lied verstehen? O Blume, weiße Blume, kannst du das Lied verstehen?
So Unitarians have a complicated relationship with our faith's Christian roots. There are some things that we repurpose, like hymns and sermons and prophets and church buildings and seminary, and there are some things that we conspicuously never mention, like heaven and hell and the devil and this cosmic wrestling match between the so-called true good and the true evil, which makes us all a little uncomfortable, right? And it's part of the reason that so many of our converts left their home churches to begin with. And part of what seminary teaches you, though, is to lean into the spiritually uncomfortable, because that's where you find growth. And in that spirit, I'd like to lead us in a meditation on sin and kind of how cool sin is. And I hope this exercise can be healing for folks who might come from a more guilt-based background. So ground yourself. We're going to take a moment of silence, and then I'd like you to try to get in touch with a defiant inner self. And I'm going to take us through the famous 7 deadly sins. For each sin, please think of a time when you have done the sin or when you have witnessed the sin, and it was good. For instance, I'm sure we can all think of shameful times that we were greedy, but when we get to greed, I want you to think of a moment that you wanted something and you pushed past shame and you went for it. Maybe that was a raise or respect in your relationship or asking for accommodations of some kind or making a personal choice that inconvenienced someone else but was what was best for you. And I know we often try to excise these examples from the label of greed, but I want us to try to take pride in our sin. Your greed can serve you. It can protect you. So for each of these sins, let's see it through the lens of standing up for ourselves and looking out for ourselves. Okay, so join me in a moment of silence. Lust, or intense longing. It could be sexual, it could not be. When have you let yourself want without shame? Look on this memory and know that it's good. Gluttony, or indulgence. When have you truly savored your time? Greed, or aspiration. When have you put yourself first, under pressure not to? When have you broken through the call to be small, to be low maintenance? It can be hard, especially for those of us pushed into caretaker roles. So know that I am proud of you. Sloth, or taking your rest. You are so much more than your productivity. When have you had to recover, to keep your systems on low? Even when it lasts longer than the people around you want, hold on to your strength, protect your body and spirit. Wrath, or anger. When have you felt righteous anger? Who have you protected? Envy, or demanding fairness. Wealthy and powerful people try to deflect criticism by calling it jealousy. But what have you seen that you deserve, or know that your children deserve, or that your community deserves? When have you recognized injustice? Pride, or pride. When have you been proud of yourself? I hope that you can look back on these other sins and see points of pride. Hold on to the feeling of pride as we exit our exercise. So if your eyes are closed, please open them. Look to your left, look to your right. See a fellow sinner, an enemy of divine blandness. We are a band of sinners, sacredly selfish, and we recognize the only way to get our needs met is to create a world where all needs are met. In a truly loving community, we are free to be radically human. Our bodies might need saving, but our souls do not. You, my friend, are already perfect. So please remain seated as we sing hymn number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Old classic around here.
Silima Himen. In the 23rd century BCE, in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, the high priestess Enheduanna composed 2 epic poems exalting the goddess Inanna. Though she was never truly the head of her pantheon, Inanna, later known as Ishtar, was a powerful, important, and multitudinous deity who was worshipped, feared, and beloved for thousands of years. Her surviving myths, while often fragmentary, depict a powerful, expansively feminine being with an often contradictory nature. A goddess of beauty and carnal love, and also of brutal warfare. She was a goddess of change as well, and there are numerous references to her ability to transform the sex of humans, turning men into women, women into men. And indeed, by all accounts, her cult centers were a haven for people we would today recognize as members of the diverse transgender panoply. For that reason, many trans women such as myself find comfort in her rediscovered stories, and we strive to keep her cult alive in our hearts. The following is a hybrid composition of my own creation, based in structure and content on one of Enheduanna's ancient poems, but with a new form and elements of modern trans folk theology woven in. With it, may I honor my goddess. Inanna, leopard of the great gods, queen of heaven and earth, full of pride, endowed with power and authority. Without her, the outcast's strife would have no purpose, for Inanna holds both their suffering and joy. She welcomes the young outcast in her chamber, receives his warring heart, and sees the truth of his handsome bearing. He who was evilly spurned, Inanna remakes, head overturned, and the false woman is no more. When she had removed the great burden from his body, she invoked blessings upon it. She caused him to be named Pilipili. She broke the spear, and as if he were a man, embraced him and gave him the weapon. Inanna comes also to the false man. She breaks the spear, and with a knife, the woman is transformed, made whole with a cut, and she is named the Gala, priestess of lament. In the entire country, Inanna makes known her decree, the station of her new attendants. She parades them through the town square, living emblems of her power, and with new understanding, a mother sees the child within her own house. On the outcasts, she imposes tribulation to strengthen their hearts, make evident her power to transform, and display the vastness of her being. They perform her sacred rites and recite the hymns which proclaim she is chief among the gods. Inanna opens the door of the house of wisdom and makes known its interior. Those who do not respect her authority do not escape her mighty wrath. Like the skilled fisher, she snares the unwary and arrogant. Evildoers and usurpers have no defense when she suspends the meshes of her net, and the man she has thus named she does not hold in esteem. Her myriad attendants, transformed, boundless, after receiving her gifts, proclaim the sacred purpose of their struggle, of their moaning and tears. The ecstatic, transformed Pilipili, the Gala priestess, the many varied attendants of her temple, lament and song are their joy and purpose. They exhaust themselves with weeping and grief, recite the holy compositions, fall daily to their knees in awe of their mistress. Inanna, you rival the great gods. You occupy their seat of honor. You are preeminent in the cult places. You are magnificent in your course.
I hate it when dudes try to chase me, but I love it when you try to save me, 'cause I'm just a lady. I love it when we play 1950. It's so cold that your stare's about to kill me. I'm surprised when you kiss me. So tell me why my gods look like you, and tell me why it's wrong. So I'll wait for you. I pray I will keep on waiting for your love. For you, I wait. I will keep on waiting for you. Did you mean it when you said I was pretty? That you didn't want to live in a city where the people are shitty? I like it when we play 1950. So bold, make 'em know that you're with me. Stone cold, will you miss me? So tell me why the gods look like you. I'll wait for you. I'll pray I will keep on waiting for your love. For you, I'll wait. I will keep on waiting for you. I hope that you're happy with me in your life. I hope that you won't slip away in the night. I hope that you're happy with me in your life. I hope that you won't slip away. I hate it when dudes try to chase me. I love it when you try to save me, 'cause I'm just a lady. So tell me why my gods look like you, and tell me why it's wrong. So I'll wait for you. I pray
Okay. Let's start with a big statement. So I believe in the reality of a big E, evil. Evil is harm, evil is loss. Evil is both an action that a person can take, but also this metaphysical reality that wafts off certain situations like smoke. When an abuela feels every bone in her body ache because she's been in a manual labor job without workers' protections for decades, every pain that she feels in her hands is evil. When a teenager has to cross state lines to get an abortion, every mile that they drive is evil. And you can put on the They Live glasses and see different levels of evil touching all of us in this room. And in our interconnected web, every act of evil ripples out to affect more people, building chains that limit our potential as humans, limiting our potential for creativity, our potential for love, chains of poverty and racism and transmisogyny and heteronormativity and Christian nationalism are weighing down this country and threatening to crush us. But we're all UUs in this room, and we know this. But when the structure of power decries evil, often it's only judging what it perceives to be sin. And I want us to try to separate the concepts of sin and evil. Sin is social rule breaking, often purity rules, right? And when we call sin evil, it's because it's dangerous to the structures that have outlawed it. And I'll give you an example. Evil can result both from being too proud or from being too humble, but only one of those is a sin, because being humble can better support existing power structures. The word holy literally means to be set apart in purity. Sin is the thing that dirties you, that throws you to the masses, but as anyone who's worked in labor knows, the masses are where you want to be. And it's a common misconception, but power does not hate difference. Power needs difference. It needs categories of marginalized people to do the jobs that privileged people do not want to do. It needs people to sacrifice to war or to industry or the economy or the culture war. What power hates is disobedience. What power hates is change. It will endlessly adapt so that it doesn't have to really change. And power is perfectly happy to love the sinner, hate the sin. I'm sure you've all heard that phrase. It loves the Latino farm worker, but how dare he sin by unionizing? It loves the prisoner, who it needs to manufacture cheap goods, but how dare she sin by trying to vote? To take it back to religion, many of you know that the Bible says that women shouldn't preach. And this is often written off as sexism, which it is, but it's also a little more complicated than that. Because when the Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy and told him not to allow women to teach in his church, it wasn't because he hated women and didn't want them to be a part of the church. The church has always been reliant on the full participation of women. It's because he perceived these women to have bad theology, that they were teaching incorrectly. Paul writes, "They want to be teachers of the law, but they do not know what they are talking about or what they so confidently affirm." And how could you imagine the world would be different if these women were allowed to teach whatever scared Paul so much? The most vocal objections to sin are the sins that are seen to corrupt marriage and family. Same-sex marriage, polyamory, open relationships, casual sex, abortion, transition, letting kids pick out their own clothes or having independent thought, women who choose not to get married or to have children or both. Our family structures are currently benefiting power, and you can see how this works by looking towards the military. So the military needs service members to be fully committed to their jobs, so it encourages, some might say pressures, its service members to get married. And you know this as a single woman in DC because most single women have been subject to some soldier's mad dash to find a wife. The military spouse is an essential part of the armed forces, as any military spouse will tell you. And for a long time, the military was famously resistant to queer service members, saying that they would distract from the whole system. They would corrupt the whole machine. And I would argue that they would, because a queered family structure cannot be as easily put to work. But the military was forced to adapt, and they refused to change, and instead incorporated LGBTQ+ people into an existing straight mold. So now the established role of a military spouse is open to anyone of any gender identity, as is the established role of a soldier. And that same course of pressure towards marriage and the benefits of marriage to power exist here in the civilian world. Many of us need to be partnered to get insurance, to afford housing, to have the time and peace of mind to dedicate our lives to work. Many of us need to have children so that we can afford to live when we're older, because people our age are not going to retire. Purely coincidentally, our economic instability can drive us to create more workers by having kids. Having a queered society, a society that not only allows LGBTQ+ people to fit inside existing straight molds, but in one in which we have true freedom, where even straight couples are bucking the mold, embracing queerness, would function as a general strike to the emotional labor the American family unit is expected to produce. The freedom of queerness demands true change, not adaptation, and this freedom is wrapped in the language of sin. Liberal Christians have an entire field of apologetics aimed at showing that queerness is not a sin. And I'm not going to argue if these views are scriptural or not. It's not really relevant, and I don't really care. I would just like to point out that this urge to de-sin queerness is a rescuing attempt of a queer person from the crime of sin. And it leaves the really bad people behind the line. People who have sex, people who are divorced, people who have shoplifted or have been put in impossible situations. There is an acceptance, this is an acceptance of queerness that can rely on the queer couple being otherwise a good, wholesome Christian couple that is married, that has adopted children, that never has sex outside the relationship. And I don't think that should be the goal of a queer spiritual movement. And you know how people throw around the word criminal to discredit people. Those protesters are criminals. Those immigrants are criminals. The word is dehumanizing, but our response should not be to say, they aren't real criminals, not like those really bad people. We should instead take the power away from the label. Yes, these people have committed a crime, but it's because the laws that we have are evil. And same with being a sinner. I would like the UU Church to be a place where we say all have sinned, but to use it as a cry of solidarity and not of judgment. If you are living your life in a way that the Pope is totally cool with, what are you doing? Sin is always, always a threat to power. Immigration threatens the lie of borders. Transness threatens the lie of patriarchy. The defiance of people of color could tear down our racialized class systems, and the fearful are responding. I'm sure you all know about the nationwide legal attacks on trans healthcare and existence, and I'm not going to get into it here, but the Human Rights Campaign has tracked over 500 anti-LGBTQ+ bills this year. And I'm sure you've heard about the Senate trying to take control of DC's access to abortion, and the truly disgusting attack on Community Unitarian Universalist Church in Plano, Texas, seemingly for their existence as a church that supports people whom other churches label as sinners. In this web of life, evil ripples out, but so does sin, and we have this wonderful tool of change. And I challenge you to be defiant, to fight, to be rude, to be disliked, to hold your sin out proudly. Thank you. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, 118, This Little Light of Mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it
Please join the words we say each week as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we share in our hearts until we are together again.
Please. Okay. So I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, which is a very different approach to sin than the one that I presented here. And one of the most famous sins in the Southern Baptist Church is dance. My family found this prohibition to be a little bit ridiculous, but still when we were on church grounds, we praised with our backs straight. And I want to thank everyone for joining me on this theological adventure, and I want to invite you to participate in my childhood sin. So as a change in tradition, after I'm done talking, please remain standing for our postlude. Our fabulous tech team is going to play some music straight from my Spotify driving playlist, and I'd like you to move as you're willing or able. If you don't want to, you're free to sit down. There's no pressure. And there is 100% no judgment here on your dancing ability. I was raised Southern Baptist, and I can't dance. Latin music can be really deep and heartbreaking while still being eminently danceable. And when you pack tight into a club, there's kind of an ecstasy of music. Reminds me of old school mysticism, Santa Teresa stuff. And this song, Por si acaso no regreso, is about the pain of leaving your homeland, not knowing if you're ever going to be able to return. It was originated by Celia Cruz, who is longing for Cuba. And today we play this cover in honor of all of the trans and undocumented folks, sinners, along with their loved ones, who are being forced to flee their states or countries because of hostile laws banning them from public life and healthcare. We call out the evil in Florida and Texas and at the border, and we reach towards future joy and healing. If so called, please share in the great queer sacrament and sin of dance. And I'm going to get off camera.
Por si acaso no regreso, yo me llevo tu bandera, lamentando que mis ojos liberada no te vieran. Pero el tiempo va pasando y tu son sigue llorando. Las cadenas siguen atando, pero yo sigo esperando. Y siempre me sentí dichosa de haber nacido entre tus brazos. Y aunque yo ya no esté, de mi corazón te dejo un pedazo. Por si acaso no regreso. Pronto llegará el momento que se borre el sufrimiento. Guardaremos los rencores, Dios mío, y compartiremos todos un mismo sentimiento. Pero tierra, ya no sufras, corazón, no te quebrantes, no, que no hay mal que dure 100 años, ni cuerpo que aguante. Y nunca quise abandonarte, te llevaba en cada paso. Y quedará mi amor para siempre como flor en tu regazo. Por si acaso